Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utapadakammalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sagana Raghunathan Vidam Tam Sajivam Satvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sagamrita Shri Vishakhan Vidamsha Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। नामश्रेष्ठं मनुमपि शचिपुत्रमत्र स्वरूपं रूपं तस्याग्रजमुरुपुरीं मातरीं गोष्ठवाटिं राधाकुण्डं गिरिवरमहो राधिका माधवाशां प्राप्तो यस्य प्रतितकृपया श्रीगुरुं तं नतोऽस्मि। नमस्ते गुरुदेवाय सर्वसिद्धिप्रदायिने सर्वमङ्गलरूपाय सर्वानन्दविदायिने अनर्पितचरिं चिरात् कर्णावतीर्णाकलौ समर्पयितुमुन्नतोज्ज्वलरसां स्वभक्तिश्रियं हरिपुरटसुन्दरद्युतिकदम्बसन्दीपितः सदा हृदयकन्दरे स्फुरतु वा शचिनन्दनः संसारदुःखजलधौ परितस्य कामः क्रोधादिनक्रमकरी कवलीकृतस्य दुर्वासना निगडितस्य निराश्रयस्य चैतन्यचन्द्रमं देहि पदावलम्बम् चैतन्यचन्द्रमरुत्कुमुदं विकास्य हृद्यं विधीर्य चिन्तनभृङ्गरङ्गै किञ्चापराधतिमिदं निबिदं विधूय पादामृतं सदयपाय दुर्गतं माम्। हरे कृष्ण। सर्वप्रथम स्मृति गुरुपाद पद्म नित्यला प्रविष्ट ओम विष्णुपाद अष्टोत्तर शत श्री श्रीमद भक्तिवेदांत नारायण गोस्वामी महाराज at his lotus feet offer my humble obeisances. And offer obeisances to lotus feet of Trindi Sannyasi Shri Srimad Bhaktivedanta Dandi Maharaj ji, all the Namisha Sant Shri Aniruddhas Prabhuji, all the Vaishnavas and Vaishnavis who are gathered here. Please accept my humble obeisances. So we are sorry I'm a little late for the class. Just fell asleep. So anyways, better late than never. So we are on the verse number 10, Adi Lila 2.10. Prakasha Vishesheteha Dharetina Brahma Paramatma Swayam Bhagavan. Prakash of manifestation, Vishesha in variety, Teha, he, Dhare, holds, three, Nama, names. Brahma means Brahman, Paramatma, the super soul, R and Swayam himself, Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. In terms of his various manifestations, he is known in three features called the impersonal Brahma, the localized Paramatma, and the original personality of Godhead. Srila Jiva Goswami has explained the word Bhagavan in his Bhagavad Sandarbha. The personality of Godhead, being full of all conceivable and inconceivable potencies, is the absolute supreme whole. Impersonal Brahma is a partial manifestation of the absolute truth, realized in the absence of such complete potencies. The first syllable of the word Bhagavan is Bha, which means sustainer and protector. The next syllable Ga means leader, pusher and creator. Va means dwelling. All living beings dwell in the Supreme Lord, and the Supreme Lord dwells within the heart of every living being. Combining all these concepts, the word Bhagavan carries the import of inconceivable potency in knowledge, energy, strength, opulence, power and influence, devoid of all varieties of inferiority. Without such inconceivable potencies, one cannot fully sustain or protect. Our modern civilization is sustained by scientific arrangements devised by many great scientific brains. We can just imagine, therefore, the gigantic brain whose arrangements sustain the gravity of the unlimited number of planets and satellites, who creates the unlimited space in which they float. If we consider if one considers the intelligence needed to orbit man-made satellites, one cannot be fooled into thinking that there is not a gigantic intelligence responsible for the arrangements of the various planetary systems. There is no reason to believe that all the gigantic planets float in the space without superior arrangement of a superior intelligence. This subject is clearly dealt with in the Bhagavad Gita 15.13. I think this is the Gama Vishyaja Bhutani Dharayami Ahamojasa Ushnami Chaushada Sarva Somo Bhutva Rasatmaka. Kam means the planets, Avish entering, Cha also, Bhutani, the living entities. Dharayami, sustain, Aham, I, Ojasa, by my energy. Pushnami, I am nourishing, Cha, and Aushadhi. Aushadhi means vegetables, Sarvaha, all, Somaha, the moon, Bhutva, becoming, Rasa Atmaka, supplying the juice. I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables. It is understood that all the planets are floating in the air only by the energy of the Lord. The Lord enters into every atom, every planet, and every living being. That is discussed in the Brahma Samhita. It is said that one plenary portion of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Paramatma, enters into the planets, the universe, the living entity, and even into the atom. So due to his entrance, everything is appropriately manifested. When the Supreme Spirit is there, a living man can float on the water. But when a living spark is out of the body and the body is dead, the body sinks. Of course, when it is decomposed, it floats just like the straw, other things. But as soon as the man is dead, he at once sinks in the water. Similarly, all these planets are floating in space. This is due to the entrance of the supreme energy of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. His energy is sustaining each planet, just like a handful of dust. If someone holds a handful of dust, there is no possibility of the dust falling. But if one throws it in the air, it will fall down. Similarly, these planets, which are floating in the air, are actually held in the feast of the universal form of the Supreme Lord. By strength and energy, all moving and non-moving things stay in their place. It is said in the Vedic hymns that because of the Supreme Personality of Godhead, the sun is shining, the planets are steadily moving. Were it not for him, all the planets would scatter like dust in the air and perish. Similarly, it is due to the Supreme Personality of Godhead that the moon nourishes all vegetables. Due to the moon's influence, the vegetables become delicious. Without the moonshine, the vegetables can neither grow nor taste succulent. Human society is working, living comfortably and enjoying food due to the supply from the Supreme Lord. Otherwise, mankind could not survive. The word Rasatmaka is very significant. Everything becomes palatable by the agency of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Through the influence of the moon. So here, very nicely it is told, Bhagavan says that I enter into each planet and my energy, they stay in orbit. Where the planets not held in the grip of the personality of Godhead, they would all scatter like the dust in the air. Modern scientists can only impractically explain this inconceivable strength of the personality of Godhead. The potencies of the syllables a, ga, and va apply in terms of many different meanings. Through his different potent agents, the Bhagavan protects and sustains everything, but he himself personally protects and sustains only his devotees. Just as the king personally sustains and protects his own children, while entrusting the protection and sustenance of the state to various administrative agents. The Lord is the leader of his devotees. As we learn from the Bhagavad Gita, which mentions that the personality of Godhead personally instructs his living devotees how to make certain progress on the path of devotion and thus surely approach the kingdom of God. The Lord is also the recipient of all the adoration offered by his devotees, for whom he is the objective and the goal. For his devotees, the Lord creates a favorable condition for developing a sense of transcendental love of God. Sometimes he does this by taking away a devotee's material attachments by force and baffling all his material protective agents. For thus the devotee must completely depend on the Lord's protection. In this way, the Lord proves himself the leader of his devotees. The Lord is not directly attached to the creation, maintenance, and destruction of the material world, for he is eternally busy in the enjoyment of transcendental bliss, which with paraphernalia composed of his internal potencies. Yet, as the initiator of material energy, as well as a marginal potency, the living beings, he expands himself as the Purusha avatars, who are invested with potencies similar to his. The Purusha avatars are also in the category of Bhagavad Tattva, because each and every one of them is identical with the original form of the personality of Godhead. The living entities are his infinitesimal particles and are qualitatively one with him. They are sent into this material world for material enjoyment to fulfill their desires to be independent individuals. But still, they are subject to the supreme will of the Lord. The Lord deputes himself in the state of supersoul to supervise the arrangements for such material enjoyment. The example of a temporary fair is quite appropriate in this connection. If the citizens of a state assemble in a fair to enjoy for a short period, the government deputes a special officer to supervise it. Such an officer is invested with all governmental power, and therefore he is identical with the government. When the fair is over, there is no need for such an officer, and he returns home. The Paramatma is compared to such an officer. The living entities are not all in all. They are undoubtedly parts of the Supreme Lord and are qualitatively one with him, yet they are subject to his control. And they are never equal to the Lord or one with him. The Lord who associates with the living being is the Paramatma, or the Supreme Living Being. No one therefore should view the tiny living beings and Supreme Living Beings to be on an equal level. The all-pervading truth that exists eternally during the creation, maintenance, and annihilation of the material world, and in which the living beings rest is in trance, is called the impersonal Brahman. It's a very nice verse actually. Then the next important verse comes, 2.11. Vadanti tattavidas tattvam yat jnanamadvayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagavaniti shabdate. Vadanti, they say that tattvavidah, learned souls, tattvam, the absolute truth, yat, which, jnanam, knowledge, advayam, non-dual, brahman, iti, thus, paramatma, iti, thus, bhagavan, iti, shabdate, is known. Learned transcendentalists who know the absolute truth say that it is non-dual knowledge, and he is called impersonal Brahman, localized Paramatma, and the personality of Godhead. This Sanskrit verse appears as the 11th verse of the first canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam, where Suta Goswami answers the questions of the sages headed by Shanak Rishi, concerning the essence of all scriptural instructions. Tattvavida refers to persons who have knowledge of the absolute truth. They can certainly understand knowledge without duality because they are on the spiritual platform. The absolute truth is known sometimes as Brahma, sometimes as Paramatma, and sometimes as Bhagavan. Persons who are in knowledge of the truth know that one who tries to approach the absolute simply by mental speculation will ultimately realize the impersonal Brahma, and one who tries to approach the absolute through yoga practice will be able to realize Paramatma. But one who has complete knowledge and spiritual understanding realizes the spiritual form of Bhagavan, the personality of Godhead. Devotees of the personality of Godhead know that Sri Krishna, the son of the king of Vraja, is the absolute truth. They do not discriminate between Sri Krishna's name, form, qualities, and pastimes. One who wants to separate the Lord's absolute name, form, and qualities from the Lord himself must be understood to be lacking in absolute knowledge. A pure devotee knows that when he chants the transcendental name Krishna, Shri Krishna is present as transcendental sound. He therefore chants with full respect and veneration. When he sees the forms of Sri Krishna, he does not see anything different from the Lord. If one sees otherwise, he must be considered untrained in absolute knowledge. This lack of absolute knowledge is called Maya. One who is not Krishna conscious is ruled by the spell of Maya under the control of a duality in knowledge. In the absolute, all manifestations of the Supreme Lord are non-dual. Just as the multifarious forms of Vishnu, the controller of Maya, are non-dual. Empiric philosophers who pursue the impersonal Brahma accept only the knowledge that the personality of the living entity is not different from the personality of the Supreme Lord, and mystic yogis who try to locate the Paramatma accept only the knowledge that the pure soul is not different from the super soul. The absolute conception of a pure devotee, however, includes all others. A devotee does not see anything except in its relationship with Krishna. Therefore, his realization is the most perfect of all. So here, 2.12, Taharangera Shuddha Kirana Mandala Upanishad kahe Tandra Brahma Sunirmala. Tahar, he is Anger of the body, Shuddha, pure, Kirana of rays, Mandala realm, Upanishata, the Upanishads, Kahe say Tandre unto that, Brahma, Sunirmala, transcendental. What the Upanishads call the transcendental impersonal Brahma is a realm of the glowing effulgence of the same Supreme Person. Purport. The mantras of the Mundaka Upanishad give information regarding the bodily effulgence of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. They state, Hiranmay pare koshe virajam brahma nishkalam Tashubram jyotisham jyotis tadyad atma vido vidu na tatra suryo bhati na chandra tarakam nema vidyuto bhanti kutoyam agni tameva bhantam anubhati sarvam tasya bhasa sarvam idam vibhati brahmaivedam amritam purastat brahma pashat brahma दक्षिणतश्चोत्तरेण अधश्चोर्धं च प्रसृतं ब्रह्मै वेदं विश्वम् idam varishtham. In the spiritual realm, beyond the material covering, is the unlimited of Brahma effulgence, which is free from material contamination. That effulgent white light is understood by transcendentalists to be the light of all lights. In that realm, there is no need of sunshine, moonshine, fire, or electricity for illumination. Indeed, whatever illumination appears in the material world is only a reflection of that supreme illumination. That Brahman is in front and in back, in the north, south, east, and west, and also overhead and below. In other words, that supreme Brahman effulgence spreads throughout both the material and spiritual skies. Very nice verse actually. So, verse number 213. चर्म चक्षे देखे जैसे सूर्य निर्विशेष ज्ञान मार्गे लैते नारे कृष्णेर विशेष. चर्म चक्षे देखे जैसे सूर्य निर्विशेष ज्ञान मार्गे लैते नारे कृष्णेर विशेष. चर्म चक्षे means by the naked eye. देखे, one sees, जैसे, just as Surya, the sun, nirvishesh, without variegatedness. Jnana marge, by the path of philosophical speculation. Laite, to accept, nare, not able. Krishnera, of Lord Krishna. Vishesh, to variety. As with the naked eye, one cannot know the sun except as a glowing substance. Merely by philosophical speculation, one cannot understand Lord Krishna's transcendental varieties. Verse number 214. यस्य प्रभा प्रभवतो जगदण्ड कोटि श्वशेष वसुधादि विभूति भिन्नम तद्ब्रह्म निष्कलम अनंतम अशेष भूतम गोविंदमादि पुरुषम तमहं भजामि. यस्य, of whom, prabha, the effulgence, prabhavata, of one who excels in power, jagadanda, of universes, koti kotishu, in millions and millions, ashesha, unlimited, vasudha adi, with planets, etc., vibhuti, with opulences, bhinnam, becoming variegated, tat, that, brahma, nishkalam, without parts, anantam, unlimited, ashesha bhutam, being complete, govindam, Lord Govinda, adi purusham, the original person, tam, him, aham, I, bhajami, worship. I worship Govinda, the primeval Lord, who is endowed with great power. The glowing effulgence of his transcendental form is the impersonal Brahma, which is absolute, complete, and unlimited, and which displays the varieties of countless planets, with their different opulences in millions and millions of universes. This verse appears in the Brahma Samhita 5.40. Each and every one of the countless universes is full of innumerable planets with different constitutions and atmospheres. All these come from the unlimited non-dual Brahma or complete whole, which exists in absolute knowledge. The origin of that unlimited Brahman effulgence is the transcendental body of Govinda, who is offered respectful obeisances as the original and supreme personality of Godhead. So, this from Brahma Samhita giving proof. Koti 2.15. Koti Brahmande je Brahmera Vibhuti Sei Brahma Govindera Hoyanga Kanti. Koti Brahmandera je Brahmera Vibhuti Sei Brahma Govindera Hoyanga Kanti. Koti means tens of millions. Tens of millions. Brahma Ande, in the universe. J, which Brahmera of Brahma, Vibhuti, opulence, say that Brahma, Govindera of Lord Govinda, Haya is Angakanti, bodily effulgence. Lord Brahma said the opulences of the impersonal Brahma spread throughout the millions and millions of universes. That Brahman is but the bodily effulgence of Govinda. Say Govinda bhajiami teho mora pati tahara prasade mora haya srushti shakti. Brahma is telling, say that Govinda, Lord Govinda, bhaji, worship, ami, I, teho, he, mora, my pati, Lord. tahara his prasade by the mercy, more my higher becomes srishti of creation, Shakti power. I worship Govinda. He is my Lord. Only by His grace am I empowered to create the universe. Although the sun is situated far away from the other planets, its rays sustain and maintain them all. Indeed, the sun diffuses its heat and light all over the universe. Similarly, the Supreme Sun, Govinda, diffuses his heat and light everywhere in the form of his different potencies. The sun's heat and light are non-different from the sun. In the same way, the unlimited potencies of Govinda are non-different from Govinda himself. Therefore, the all-pervasive Brahma is the all-pervasive Govinda. The Bhagavad Gita clearly mentions that the impersonal Brahma is dependent upon Govinda. That is a real conception of absolute knowledge. Munayo vatavasana shramana urdhamanthina brahmakyam dhamate yanti shanta sannyasino amala. Munaya is the verse number 2.17. Adilila Munaya, O saints, vatavasana naked. Shramanaha, who perform severe physical penances. Urdhva, raised up. Manthina, whose semen. Brahmakyam, known as Brahmaloka. Dhama, to the abode. They, yanti go. Shanta, equipoised in Brahma. Sannyasina, who are in the renounced order of life. Amalaha, pure. Naked saints and sannyasis who undergo severe physical penances, who can raise the semen to the brain, and who are completely equipoised in Brahma, can live in the realm known as Brahmaloka. In this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11 Canto 6, chapter 47 verse, Vatavasana refers to mendicants who do not care about anything material, including clothing, but who depend wholly on nature. Such sages do not cover their bodies even in severe winter or scorching sunshine. They take great pains not to avoid any kind of bodily suffering. And they live by begging from door to door. Into the brain. Thus they become most intelligent and develop very sharp memories. Their minds are never disturbed or diverted from contemplation on the absolute truth, nor are they ever contaminated by desire for material enjoyment. By practicing austerities under strict discipline, such mendicants attain a neutral state, transcendental to the modes of nature, and merge into the impersonal Brahma. So verse 2.18, Atmantaryami Jandre Yoga Shastre Kahe Seha Govindera Amsha Vibhuti Atma Antarjami, indwelling super soul, Jandre, who Yoga Shastre, in the scriptures of Yoga, Yoga Shastra. So here, say that Govindera Govinda Amsha, plenary ocean, Vibhuti, expansions, J, which Hai is. He who is described in the Yoga Shastras as the indwelling super soul, Atma Antaryami, is also a plenary portion of Govinda's personal expansion. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is by nature joyful. His enjoyments or pastimes are completely transcendental. He is not the fourth dimension, he is in the fourth dimension of existence. For although the material world is measured by the limitations of length, breadth, and height, the Supreme Lord is completely unlimited in his body, form, and existence. is not personally attached to any of the affairs within the material cosmos. The material world is created by the expansion of his Purushavatars, who direct the aggregate material energy and all the conditioned souls. By understanding the three expansions of the Purusha, a living entity can transcend the position of knowing only the 24 elements of the material world. One of the expansions of Mahavishnu is Kshirodakshaya Vishnu, the supersoul within every living entity. As the supersoul of the total aggregate of the living entities, or the second Purusha, he is known as Garbhodakshaya Vishnu. As the creator or original cause of innumerable universes, or the first Purusha who is lying on the causal ocean, he is called Mahavishnu. The three Purushas direct the affairs of the material world. The authorized scriptures direct the individual souls to revive their relationship with the supersoul. Indeed, the system of yoga is the process of transcending the influence of the material elements by establishing a connection with the Purusha known as Paramatma. One who has thoroughly studied the intricacies of creation can know very easily that this Paramatma is the plenary portion of the Supreme Being, Shri Krishna. So far, first there was a discussion on Brahma. Vadanti tattva vidas tattvam yad jnanam advayam brahmeti paramatmeti bhagvaniti shabdate. The same absolute truth known as Brahma, Paramatma and Bhagavan. So, now verse number 2.19. अनंत स्फटिके जैसे एक सूर्य भासे तैसे जीव गोविंदेर अंश प्रकाशे. अनंत, unlimited, स्फटिके in crystals, जैसे, just as, एक, one, Surya, sun, bhase, appears, taiche, just so, jive in the living entity, Govindera of Govinda, Ansha, portion, Prakashe, manifest. As the one sun appears reflected in countless jewels, so Govinda manifests himself as Paramatma in the hearts of all living beings. The sun is situated in a specific location, but is reflected in countless jewels and appears in innumerable localized aspects. Similarly, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, although eternally present in his transcendental abode, Golok Vrindavan, is reflected in everyone's heart as a supersoul. In the Upanishads, it is said that the Jiva, the living entity, and the Paramatma, supersoul, are like two birds sitting in the same tree. The supersoul engages the living being in executing fruitive work as a result of his deeds in the past. But the Paramatma has nothing to do with such engagements. As soon as the living being ceases to act in terms of fruitive work and takes to the service of the Lord, the Paramatma, coming to know of his supremacy, he is immediately freed from all designations, and in that pure state he enters the kingdom of God, known as Vaikuntha. The Paramatma or Supersoul, the guide of the individual beings, does not take part in fulfilling the desires of the living beings, but he arranges for their fulfillment by material nature. As soon as an individual soul becomes conscious of his eternal relationship with the Supersoul and looks only to find him, only towards him, he at once becomes free from the entanglements of material enjoyment. Christian philosophers who do not believe in the laws of karma put forward the argument that it is absurd to say one must accept the results of past deeds of which he has no consciousness. A criminal is first reminded of his misdeeds by witnesses in a law court, and then is punished. If death is complete forgetfulness, why should a person be punished for his past misdeeds? The conception of the Paramatma is an invincible answer to these fallacious arguments. So here, the Paramatma is the witness of the past activities of the individual living being. A man may not remember what he has done in his childhood. But his father, who has seen him grow through various stages of development, suddenly remembers. Similarly, the living being undergoes many changes of body through many lives, but the super soul is always with him and remembers all his activities despite his evolution through different bodies. So Swami Maharaj actually giving very amazing actually this explanation that we do not know what we have done in the past, but Bhagwan actually remembers everything, and therefore Paramatma he knows everything actually. So the next verse, अथवा बहुना एतेन 2.20 अथवा बहुना एतेन किं ज्ञातेन तवार्जुन विष्टभ्याम्यहं कृष्णम् एकां श्रेण स्थितो जगत्. अथवा or bahuna, much, etena, with this, kim, what use, gyatena, being known, tava, by you, Arjuna, O Arjuna, Vishtabhya, pervading, aham, I, idam, this, kritsnam, entire, ekamshena, with one portion, sthitaha, situated in Jagat, universe. The personality of God, Sri Krishna said, what more shall I say to you? I live throughout this cosmic manifestation merely by my single plenary portion. Describing his own potencies to Arjuna, the personality of God, Sri Krishna spoke this verse of the Bhagavad Gita, 10.42. Tam imam ahajam sharira bhajam rudirudidishtitam atmakalpitanam pratidusamiva naika dharatam eka samadhigato asmi viduta vedamoha. Tam, him, imam, this, aham, I, ajam, the unborn, sharira bhaja, of the conditioned souls, endowed with bodies, rudi, in each of the hearts, dishtitam, situated, atma, by themselves, kalpitanam, which are imagined, pratidrusham, for every eye, eva, like, na ekadha, not in one way, Arkam, the sun, Ekam, one, Samadhigata, one who has obtained, Asmi, I am, Viduta, removed, Bheda Moha, whose misconception of duality. Grandfather Bhishma said, as the one sun appears differently situated, different seers, so also do you, the unborn, appear differently represented as the Paramatma in every living being. But when a seer knows himself to be one of your own servitors, no longer does he maintain such duality. Thus, I am now able to comprehend your eternal forms, knowing well the Paramatma to be only your plenary portion. This verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.9.42 was spoken by Bhishma, the grandfather of the Kurus. When he was lying on a bed of arrows at the last stage of his life, Arjuna, Krishna, and numberless friends, admirers, relatives, and sages had gathered on the scene as Maharaj Yudhishthira took moral and religious instructions from the dying Bhishma. Just as the final moment arrived for him, Bhishma spoke these words while looking at Lord Krishna. Just as the one sun is the object of vision of many different persons, so the one partial representation of Lord Krishna who lives in the heart of every living entity as Paramatma is a variously perceived object. One who comes intimately in touch with Lord Krishna by engaging in his eternal service sees the super soul as the localized partial representation of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Bhishma knew the super soul to be a partial expansion of Lord Krishna, whom he understood to be the supreme unborn transcendental form. So Bhishma Dev also, such a great devotee, he also described the glories of Paramatma. Saita Govinda Sakshat Chaitanya Gosai Jivan Istarityai Che Dayaduar Nai. Caitanya Caritamrta Adi lila 2.22. Saita, that Govinda Sakshat, personally, Chaitanya, Lord Chaitanya, Gosai, Jiva, the fallen living entities, Nistari, they to deliver. Aiche, such Dayalu, a merciful Lord, are another Nai, there is not. That Govinda personally appears as Chaitanya Gosai. No other Lord is as merciful in delivering the fallen souls. Having described Govinda in terms of his Brahma, Paramatma features, now the author of Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta advances his argument to prove that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is the identical personality. The same Lord Krishna, in the garb of a devotee of Lord Sri Krishna, descended to this mortal world to reclaim the fallen human beings who had misunderstood the personality of Godhead, even after the explanation of the Bhagavad Gita. In the Bhagavad Gita, the personality of Godhead, Sri Krishna directly instructed that the Supreme is a person, and the impersonal Brahma is his glowing effulgence, and that the Paramatma is his partial representation. All men were therefore advised to follow the path of Sri Krishna, leaving aside all mundane isms. Offenders misunderstood this instruction, however, because of their poor fund of knowledge. Thus, by his causeless, unlimited mercy, Sri Krishna came again as Sri Chaitanya Gosai, the author of Sri Chaitanya Caritamrta, most emphatically stresses that Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu is Sri Krishna himself. He is not an expansion of the Prakash or Vilas forms of Sri Krishna. He is the Swayam Rupa, Govinda. Apart from the relevant scriptural evidence forwarded by Srila Krishnadas Kaviraj Goswami, there are innumerable other scriptural statements regarding Lord Chaitanya as being the Supreme Lord himself. The following examples may be cited. From the Chaitanya Upanishad, verse number 5, Gaura Sarvatma Mahapurusho Mahatma Mahayogi Triguratita Sattvarupo Bhaktim Loke Kashyati. Lord Gaura, who is the all-pervading super soul, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, appears as a great saint and powerful mystic who is above the three modes of nature and is the emblem of transcendental activity. He disseminates the cult of devotion throughout the world. From the Shveta Upanishad, Tam Ishwaranam Paramam Maheshwaram, Tam Devatanam Paramam Chadaivatam, Patim Patinam Paramam Parastad Vidamadevam Bhuvane Shaidyam. O Supreme Lord, you are the Supreme Maheshwara, the worshipable deity of all the demigods, and the Supreme Lord of all lords. You are the controller of all controllers, the personality of Godhead, the Lord of everything worshipable. Mahan Prabhurvai Purusha Sattvasyaisha Pravartaka Sunirmalam Imam Prapti Vishanu Jyotiravyayam. The Supreme Personality of Godhead is Mahaprabhu, who disseminates transcendental enlightenment. Just to be in touch with him is to be in contact with the indestructible Brahmajyoti. From Mundaka Upanishad 3.1.3, Yada Pashyate Rukmavarnam Kartaravisham Purusham Brahma Yonim. One who sees that golden colored personality of Godhead, the Supreme Personality, the Supreme Actor, who is the source of the Supreme Brahma, is liberated. Then from Srimad Bhagavatam, 11th canto, 5th chapter, 33 and 34 verse. And also 7th canto, 9th chapter, 38 verse. Deyam sada paribhavagnam avishtadoham tirthaspadam shivavarinjinatam sharanyam Vrutyarkyam pranatapala bhavabdipotam Vande Mahapurusate Charnarvindam. We offer our respectful obeisances into the lotus feet of Him, the Lord upon whom one should always meditate. He destroys insults to His devotees. He removes the distresses of His devotees and satisfies their desires. He is the abode of all holy places and the shelter of all sages. He is worshipable by Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. He is the boat of the demigods for crossing the ocean of birth and death. Tyaktva sudasya surev sitarajya lakshmim dharmishtarya vachasa yadagadharanyam mayamragam daitepsitam anvadhavat vande mahapurushate charanaravindam. We offer our respectful obeisances unto the lotus feet of Lord, upon whom one should always meditate. He left his householder life, leaving aside his eternal consort, whom even the denizens of heaven adore. He went into the forest to deliver the fallen souls, who are put into illusion by material energy. Prahlad said, Ittam Rotiryaga Devadhashavatarir Lokan Vibhavayasi Hansi Jagat Pratipan Dharmam Mahapurushapas Yugana Vrittam Channa Kalau Yadavatriugota Sattvam. My Lord, you kill all the enemies of the world in your multifarious incarnations, in the families of men, animals, demigods, rishis, aquatics, and so on. Thus, you illuminate the worlds with transcendental knowledge. In the age of Kali, O Mahapurusha, you sometimes appear as a covered incarnation. Therefore, you are known as Triyuga, one who appears in only three yugas. Number 5 from Krishna Yamala Tantra. Punya Kshetre Navadvipe Bhavishyami Sachizuta. I shall appear in the holy land of Navadvip as the son of Sachidevi. From the Vayu Puran. Kalau Sankirtanarambe Bhavishyami Shachisuta. In the age of Kali, when the Sankirtan movement is inaugurated, I shall descend as the son of Shachi Devi. From the Brahma Yamal Tantra. Athavaham dharadhame bhutva mat bhaktarupadhruk mayam cha bhavishyami kalo sankirtanagame. Sometimes I personally appear on the surface of the world in the garb of a devotee. Specifically, I appear as the son of Shachi in Kali Yuga to start the Sankirtan movement from the Ananta Samhita. Eva Bhagavan Krishna Radhika Pranavallava Srishtiyado Sajagannatho Gaurasin Maheshwari. The Supreme Person, Shri Krishna, Himself, who is the life of Shri Radharani, is the Lord of the universe in creation, maintenance, and annihilation, appears as Gaura or Maheshwari. So, same Krishna has appeared as Gaura. There is no difference between Krishna and Gaura. So, verse number 2.23. Parabhyome Devaise Narayana Nama Shraishwarya Purna Lakshmi Kanta Bhagavana. Parabhyomete, in the transcendental world, Vaise sits Narayana, Lord Narayan, Nama of the name, Shat Aishwarya, of the 6 kinds of opulences. Purna, full, Lakshmi Kanta, the husband of the goddess of opulence. Bhagavan, the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Lord Narayan, who dominates the transcendental world, is full in 6 opulences. He is the Personality of Godhead, the Lord of the Goddess of Fortune. Hare Krishna. Thank you so much for attending this class. We stopped at verse number 223. So next time we'll continue. Verse number 2.24, Adi lila, Caitanya Caritamrta, will again begin from that verse. And it's actually Chaitanya Caritamrta, Chaitanya Bhagavat. These are wonderful books. So we should try to study these books very carefully and discuss these books because they will help us in making advancement in bhakti. These are not ordinary books; they are PhD level knowledge. Considering the knowledge which we have in Vedic culture, um, other religions do not have access to that type of knowledge. They also have some knowledge, some basic knowledge, which their prophets and their religious teachers have given to them, and they lead a life based on those teachings of the prophets and their guides. But Sri Krishna himself, he has given this knowledge in Bhagavad Gita. Then he again appeared as Vedavyas, and he again gave knowledge of Bhagavatam. Again he appeared as Vishnu Daivata and Vedavyas incarnation. Shri Vrindavan Das Thakur gave us Chaitanya Bhagavat. So a great devotee sent Krishna's Kaviraj Goswami to give us this Chaitanya Caritamrta, which is real nectar and full of deep Siddhanta. So we'll continue next time. Thank you so much. I again apologize for coming late for the class today because somehow I fell asleep. Hare Krishna. Vanchakalpataruvescha kripa sindhuvecha pridhanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namaha. Hare Krishna. Hare Hare.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Dhanyavad Prams. Any questions, devotees? Okay, I think no questions, Maharaj. Thank you again for coming on, Maharaj. I'm so sorry you're taking rest and I didn't know I was calling you. I hope you're okay and your health is good.
Yeah, I'm okay. Actually, sometimes fall asleep sometimes because it's about 10 o'clock here in India time. Generally speaking, the body clocks sometimes feel asleep at 9 o'clock. But actually, it's okay because I don't strictly follow any schedule. Sometimes stay late at night. But Chandra Prabhuji told, early to bed, early to rise keeps you healthy, wealthy, and wise. Sleep early and get up early. Chandra Prabhuji, I saw that he goes to sleep like 8 o'clock or 9 o'clock. He gets up at 1 o'clock. From 1 o'clock till 8 o'clock in the morning, sitting in one posture, he keeps on chanting the Maha Mantra. So it does about 8 hours straight. He's sitting in one posture and chanting Harinam. So he is very determined to chant the holy name. It's like the modern day Namacharya, I would say. Sripad Dandi Maharaj calls him modern day Namacharya. But we have to be also strict like him, and he shows to the world that although he's 94-year-old, maybe more, 96 or 97, still he is very strict about chanting the holy name. So he's almost approaching 100 now, and he's almost double my age, but still he does good chanting, wonderful chanting. So like that, we should follow the ideals of Srila Gurudev, Shri Aniruddha Prabhuji, Sripad Dandi Maharaj ji, all these great Vaishnavas, they guide us how to do bhakti. So some suggestion is coming that we should change the time so that I can take rest early. But it's okay because it's okay because we'll see, we'll see. Because I may have to travel to Maharashtra also, unless some work actually. Sripad Dandi Maharaj also may have to travel if some formality is there. I'm making signs for some bank account, but nothing is fixed yet. But we will let you know. I'll let you know. If the work can be done by post, accomplished by post, then there is no need to go to Maharashtra. But if it cannot be accomplished by post, I will have to make a short visit to Maharashtra just to finish these legal formalities. Okay. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. 8 o'clock will be okay.
Sure, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
But Vishaka Didi will tell, because there are people in different time zones and different. So, it's okay. Hare Krishna. Dandavats. Thank you so much. Very good.
Dandavad pranams, Maharaj. Thank you so much, and sorry for the inconvenience.
No problem. Hare Krishna. So, Jadvani, Anangman Prabhu.
Shri Shri Guru Gauranga Gandharvika Giridhari Radha Vinoda Bihari Ji Ki Jai. Om Vishnu Parashtotara Shata Shri Shri Bhakti Vidanta Vishnu Devi Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Om Vishnu Parashtotara Shata Shri Shri Bhakti Vidanta Dandi Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai, 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 Jai.
Nitya Lila Pravishto Vishnu Parashtotara Shata Shri Shri Bhakti Vidanta Narayana Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitya
Jai, Jai, Jai.
Vishnu Parashtotara Shata Shri Shri Bhakti Vidanta Vaman Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai.
Vishnu Parashtotara Shata Shri Shri Bhakti Vedanta Swami Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai, Jai, Jai.
Vishnu Parashtotara Shata Shri Shri Bhakti Pragyan Keshav Goswami Maharaj Ki Jai. Nitya Vishto Vishnu Parashtotara Shata Shri Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Goswami Prabhupada Ki Jai.
Jai, Jai.
Vishtapa Rama Bhagavat Pravara Shri Srila Gaura Kishore Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai. Nila Pravishta Shri Srila Sachidananda Bhakti Vinod Thakur Ki Jai. Nila Pravishta Vaishnava Sarva Bhoma Shri Srila Jagannath Das Babaji Maharaj Ki Jai.
Jai, Jai, Jai.
Acharya Shri Srila Baladev Vidya Bhushan Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur Ki Jai. Shri Narottam Srinivas Shyamananda Prabhu Traya Ki Jai.
Jai.
Vavi Raj Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai. Shri Matan Bhat Raghunath Shri Jeev Gopal Badas Raghunath Sat Goswami Prabhu Ki Jai.
Jai, Jai.
Rup Damodar Raya Ramanandari Shri Gaura Prasad Vrinda Ki Jai.
Jai, Jai, Jai.
Aya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai.
Jai, Jai.
Kaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasati Gaura Bhakta-Vrinda Ki Jai. Antardvik Mayapur Simantadvik Godrumadvik Madhyadvik Koladvik Ritudvik Janudvik Modradrumadvik ऊर्ध्वधिपत्मकार श्रीनवद्वीपधाम की
जय
जय।
जय जय जय।
राधा कृष्णा गोपा गोपी गोवर्धन द्वादश भानात्मका श्री ब्रजमंडल की जय। श्री
जय
राधा
जय जय।
श्याम कुंद गंगा यमुना तुलसी भक्ति देवी की जय। श्रीमती
जय जय
वृंददेव की जय। श्री
जय
पूर्णमा योग माया की जय। श्री गोपी
जय हो
सवार महादेव की जय। श्री जगन्नाथ बलदेव
जय
सुभद्र सुदर्शन चक्र जीव की जय। श्री क्षेत्र
की
मंडल
जय
की जय। सर्व विघ्न
जय
विनाशकारी श्री नरसिंहदेव की जय। भक्त प्रवार
जय
श्री प्रहलाद महाराज की जय। चार धाम की जय।
जय
चार संप्रदाय की
जय
जय। आचार
जय हो
की जय। अकर मत राज
जय
श्री चैतन्य मात की जय। श्री श्री
जय
केशरी गौड़िय मात ओ तत्सकमा समूहा की जय।
जय
ग्रंथराज
हो
श्री भागवतम की जय। श्री चैतन्य
जय
चरितामृत की जय। श्री
जय हो
हरिनाम संकीर्तन की जय। अनंत को
जय
वैष्णव वृंद की जय।
की जय
सामगात वृंद की जय। श्री निताय
जय जय
गौर नंद हरि हरि
हरि
बोल।
बोल। जय जय श्री मोहन प्रभु जी की जय। हरे कृष्ण। जय। थैंक यू
Yeah, Hare
डिवोटीज।
Krishna. Dandavat Pranam. Thank you all devotees for joining. Thank you, Marge, for joining. And we'll see you all
हरे
tomorrow for class and Sunday for Bhagavad Gita as it is.
हरे कृष्ण।
Hare Krishna
हरे
Dandavat
कृष्ण।
Pranam. Vanchita
दंडवत
Srivastya Kripadevacha
वासुदेवेच
Patitam Pavani
पतितानां
Vaishnava
नमो नमः।
Vaishnava
हरे कृष्ण। दंडवत।
Hare Krishna. Thank you again, Marge, and sorry for the inconvenience.
No
Dandavat
no no
Pranam.
problem no
Hare
problem। हरे कृष्ण। दंडवत। हरे कृष्ण। हरे कृष्ण।